So the name of this presentation is Encapsulating and Reusing Your User Interface Code. So if that's where you plan to be, you're in the right place. Like I told some of you that were in here, thank you for staying with me and coming into this presentation despite my presentation yesterday. But just to introduce myself, I go by Q. You're all okay to call me Q. My name is Quentin Alldredge, but you can call me Q. I get that reference, I get that nickname by both the Star Trek and James Bond references. Basically, it started with my brothers, because I'm a big Trekkie, as you could see by my wallpaper on my desktop earlier. And then my first job out of school, I worked in a mechanical test lab where they hired me to keep all of their data acquisition systems up and running. And I made all the technicians' jobs easier by automating stuff. And so they gave me that nickname based off of the James Bond reference because I gave them all the gizmos that made their job easier. So now I wear two hats. The Air Force has officially paid my way to be here. I'm a civil servant with the Air Force. But in order to avoid having to do all of the crazy stuff of going through the effort of getting approvals to present stuff, I do all of my code and presentations that I share publicly on my own time under the name Q Software Innovations, which is endorsed by the Air Force. So those are the two hats. Here I'm getting paid by the Air Force to be here, but I'm presenting under my own. So, okay. Here's how to get a hold of me if you want. That's my avatar on just about everything. So if you see that on any of the forums, that's me. So I'm the LabVIEW zealot. That's what that is. Yeah, except the glowing eyes part. But okay. So in overview, I'm going to give you a recap about Q controls. How many of you have ever heard of Q controls? Okay, quite a few. How many use Q controls? 2 or 3? You downloaded the package. Okay, well that's a step in the right direction. How many of you know what X controls are? Okay. How many of you use X controls? How many of you like X controls? Okay. So not to offend anybody, but one of my coworkers compared my love of X controls to, so initially I was really a proponent of them. But then through a series of events and the project that I was working on, that totally shifted my view of them. And he told me that I was the Jewish rabbi that got converted to Christianity because I totally changed my outlook on what that meant, what X controls meant to me. So, because so few of you know what X controls are, this presentation was going to be the sequel of the one that I gave at NIV 2 years ago, which was the introduction to Q controls. But because a lot of you don't know what they are, I want to spend a little bit more time kind of introducing them to you so that you know what we're talking about. But the idea is what's the niche that X controls fill? What do you think?
Reusable controls with like custom functionality.
Exactly. And that's the exact thing that Q controls does for you without all the crashiness and bugs. So, but it also does one more thing for you. It makes it extensible so that you can extend upon it. So when I talk about reuse and encapsulation, those are important things, but really I'm only going to talk about that this much in the presentation. Really, it's more about the extensibility of Q controls. Because the real return on investment is, well, how easy is this to modify for my next customer? Or how easy is this to use for my next customer? Can I build on IP that I've already created? So first, a recap of Q controls. Q controls are an object-oriented, extensible alternative to X controls. In a nutshell, they're a class that has a reference to the control that you want to control in it. And after that, you do all of the manipulation of that control or multiple controls, which I'll show you in a minute you can do, through now the interfaces of that class, through the properties, through the methods, and everything of that class. Now, one thing it gives you is part of the toolkit, because you're inheriting from a chain of classes that I've already created for you that exist as part of the toolkit. You get an asynchronous event handler that launches for you. So that's where you get to put all of your fancy UI manipulation code, and that launches by nature of the constructor that you put down. So that solves one problem that X controls have. These aren't running all the time. These are only running when your application is running. And if you don't know what X controls do, they basically, as soon as you pop them down, they're running in your VI. And that's actually part of the reason they're a problem. And I'll talk about that more in a little bit too. So, another thing that you get as part of the Q Control Toolkit is you get all of the properties and methods that are currently built into the VI server. And I'll show you what that means here in just a moment. So here's a maybe somewhat biased list of the differences between Q controls and X controls. So yeah, both encapsulate your UI logic and separates it from the business logic. Both allow you to create custom properties and methods. Both, well, after that, if you think of an X control, you can't, like, let's say you create an X control and you put a multi-column list box down. And now you want to handle one of the methods that multi-column list box has built in, like just, add something to the multi-column list box. You have to basically create your own method in the X control in order to populate that multi-column list box. You get stuff like that for free with the Q Control Toolkit. Also, which I'll explain here in just a little bit, you can't really use X controls with libraries or with classes, and therefore with Actor Framework, with DQMH, with any of these other things very easily, or I would say not at all in some instances. The reason for that is X controls have two fundamental problems. And it has to do with, first, when it executes. So if you have just a vanilla VI, it's not in a library, it's not part of a class, when does your X control run? It runs when you plop it down, it starts running. Or when that VI opens, it starts running. If that VI is in a library or a class, when does, well, essentially, the X control starts running when the VI gets put into memory. But when does the VI get put into memory when it's in a library or class? When the library opens. And so you get strange behavior with your init abilities and your uninit abilities, which is part of X controls. The other problem that's hard is because it's always running, if you want your developers to be able to do something ahead of time with your X control, you have to program all that edit time behavior in. Because, yeah, the X control knows when the VI that it's sitting in is in runtime or edit time mode, but you then have to program all that edit time behavior in yourself. So one of the fundamental reasons why I changed away from X controls. The other problem was the project I was on, which you can hear about if you come to my next presentation after this one, we started down the road of creating X controls for a touchscreen interface. Well, it got to the point where, okay, we're going to start using Actor Framework because we're getting multiple modules, so let's make it Actor Framework. And some of our X controls started being buggy, and we kept trying to find workarounds. And so for some of them we found workarounds, and we kept using them. For some of them we didn't, so we replaced them. But then our project got so big, we decided we needed to go to PPLs, and that's where all hell broke loose. Okay, and then that's when we decided, okay, all X controls are out. And that's when I came up with Q controls. So here's a brief history. Q controls have actually been around for a while. I first came up with this toolkit back in 2015, actually a little bit before that. That's when it got put on the Tools Network. I presented at NI Week 2018. This would be the sequel of that presentation. Last year, I won the NI Tools Network Community Contribution Award for the Q controls. And then here's some links that you can go to learn more about them. To download it, you can go to VIPM or to the Tools Network, but here's a small link for that. And there's a Q Controls enthusiast group, just like there's a Quick Drop enthusiast group or any of those on the NI forums. And then you can also just follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn. I post stuff all the time on what I'm doing there. So like I said, Q Controls extend rather than replace like X Controls do. So you can get all of the properties and methods of the VI server. You can, all of those properties and methods that are implemented in the VI server are overridable. So say you have column headers for your list box, and you want to change how the column headers work when someone inputs something into column headers. You can override the column headers property. And then just by the nature of the way object-oriented works in LabVIEW, you pass your property, or your Q control class wire into a property node, and you access all of the properties just as you did before. Now for methods, because they do the same thing for the invoke node, you still have to go find the methods, but small price to pay. There's ways that you can find the methods easily with like class method browser from MGI, or in LabVIEW 2019, I think there's an easy way to find methods that belong to classes, like right clicking on the wire or something. I haven't played with that feature yet. Does anyone know about that? Is that right?
Yeah, you right click on the wire and it comes up to a sub-menu, access basically, public.
Yeah, so that's the other way you can find the methods. The other parts of a Q control is, like I said, it has an asynchronous event handler that spins up, and that's where you put all of your UI code. In order to keep that asynchronous event handler and everything that's happening in your business logic code that's interfacing with the Q control, there's also state data that you have to keep track of. So I am going to go into more. Let's see. I think I want to show you that first. Like I said, I'm going to be playing this presentation a little bit, ad-libbing a little bit than what I originally planned, so that I can show you some more of this stuff. So let me bring up the code first before I talk about reuse, and just show you the parts of a Q control. Should have had this up and running already, sorry. We'll get it going. Okay, so just for simplicity, let me just show, well, let's see, let me show you this guy first. So this is a multi-column list box Q control. Basically, I'm extending a regular multi-column list box to do sorting by column. I'll show a little bit more of this after in a little bit, but here's the parts of it. You have the event handler, and so you can see in the event handler, for this one, really all I'm registering for is a mouse down, and I decide if I'm going to perform the sort or not. So this isn't code that exists in your business logic. This is code that exists in the Q control. Then you also have, the methods that you produce. I have some private ones that I don't want exposed to developers. You could put public ones in here as well. I have various properties, like I override the column header strings. I'm going to talk about that more in a little bit. And then I also have the state data and the definition of the state data. This is where you would put all of the state for your Q control. And then what that ends up looking like in your application that's using it is, oops, that's not the VI. Next one down. You have a constructor where you pass it the reference, and then after that, you do all manipulation of that control with this class wire. And you can see, when I click on this, all of the properties that are normally available to you for a multi-column list box is here, along with the new ones I've added. And it's in the same hierarchy you're used to, working with the VI server and all of that stuff. So those are the parts of a queue control. Any questions so far? That is basically the rushed edition of the previous presentation I gave at NIV. The only thing that I did differently is then I took you through and we created one right then. In this presentation, I think I'm not going to go ahead and create one right here, live in front of you. I will show you how you start one. If you come into File and New, queue controls actually show up in the other files after you install this toolkit. You click OK, and the wizard pops up. It does take a few seconds. I must not have the fixed one that I have been working on, but the wizard comes up. You come in and you select what queue control you want to inherit from. It's taking a little bit long to populate this tree control on my laptop, but my laptop's pretty old. But then you can continue from there, and it will basically create that structure for you on disk. And then after that, you start editing those functions. And I don't know if this part's going to come up. There it goes. So I'm sure it won't take that long on you all's computer. Just this is a slow old laptop. But say I wanted to extend a string control, you would click string and then go through the rest of the process.
For extending other queue controls, I assume that's what the browser definition.
Yep. If you want to inherit from one of your own and extend it further, then you can do that. Yep. Okay, so that's as much as I'm going to go into actually creating them. If you need more help on creating a queue control, it ships with a getting started in the help menu. It talks you through how to create just a really simple extension of a string control that lets you basically do it like you're doing a form where you want to check to see if they put in a phone number. That's what the getting started exercise is, and it will change color if it's not a phone number, and it will change a different color if it is a phone number. So you can try that on your own.
It's a pretty good example, actually.
Is it? Oh, thank you. So I'm going to go back into the slides. So why do you want to reuse your code? Well, pretty simply, you want to maximize your effort and the amount of money you make. So reusing, obviously, helps you save time and resources in something you've already created. So here's 10 tips that I got from that link on the bottom of things you can do to help write reusable code. Keep the code dry, so don't repeat yourself. Make the class method do just one thing. That's the separation of principles you always hear about. Try to reduce decoupling, be modular. Write your code like your code is an external API, meaning every piece you want to basically have that be its own self-contained unit and then have API to access it. I'm not going to talk through all of these, but I'll let you guys have a second if you want to picture it or whatever. I think this is a good set of guidelines. All right, y'all good? Okay, so that's how. Now let's talk about encapsulation and why you want to do that. So what is encapsulation? Well, just what you think, like a capsule. You try to keep all of the code necessary inside the capsule and only have certain ways to get into it. And object-oriented programming, that's one of the main concepts of it. So queue controls encapsulates your UI code so that you can then turn around and reuse that code wherever you need to. And another thing that's unlike an X control is it doesn't lock the skin or the look of the control in with that code. Because in X control, you have one facade VI that has the event handler and your user interface. Well, with the queue control, if you create like the multi-compass box one I just showed, and you want to reuse that with a silver control, or you want to reuse that with one of the new flat controls that JKI just showed, It doesn't matter, as long as it's a multi-columnist box and you pass a reference to a multi-columnist box, all of your code is going to run for that new multi-columnist box. There is a few caveats to that, where some of the system controls, like you can't set colors on buttons and things, but other than the things that you're locked into because of OS, you can do that. So, like I said, most of this presentation I want to talk about extension. So, extensibility, this is kind of a wordy slide, but suffice it to say, you're just planning for modification. You're putting the hooks in necessary to make your code be able to be expanded, to be extensible, to add new features in the future without breaking everything. That is the summary of extensibility. So I'm going to talk about some of the ways that you do that with Q controls. So, like I said, there's properties. You can create new properties. You can override properties that already exist, including all of the ones that are built into the VI server. You can create new methods. You can also override those methods. You can pass a new helper class into the Q control to change behavior on how it works. And then I have a fancy one that I kind of showed last year. It's a data grid. I'm going to show a little bit more of it this year that shows actually extensions into the IDE that help the developer that uses your Q control to set up your data grid. So first off, properties. Properties in Q controls are just fancy accessors. There's nothing that says an accessor should only have a bundle or unbundle in it. The only thing that an accessor locks you into is the connector pane. It has to have the two classes, the two errors, and either an input or an output. So you can add other code into there. And for this demo, I did a calendar control that has a lot of extra properties into it. So here's all of the extra properties. You can change the color of a whole bunch of things. You can change the first day of the week. You can change visible horizontal lines, vertical lines. You can decide whether the today selector is visible or not. You can, so let me show you that. So here's my calendar control. And you can see I can click on the calendar, I can pick the month. This is very similar to the calendar you get through the pop-up. I just basically stole parts of that and rewrote it. And actually I rewrote this as an X control way back when, and after I made Q controls, I rewrote it again as a Q control. So, but I rewrote it with a lot more properties like this. Say, okay, you have one customer that wants their system to look just like a standard Windows application. Okay, well there you go, there's your standard Windows application look. Then you have another customer that says, we want a date selector, but we want a dark theme to our application. Well, through the properties that you've already programmed into this Q control, you can come in here and say, okay, I want the selector background to be dark gray, and I want, let's see, we'll say the text to be white, and we want the days of the week maybe to be a little bit lighter gray, and we want the calendar background, I don't know, somewhere in between, and they want to have highlighting be green, and maybe not that color green. Yeah, that's a little dark. Let's see, let's pick something in between here, maybe, yeah, it's good. So, you know, you basically are reskinning this thing through properties. And because you already planned that ahead, now you can reuse that same control again and just change the colors of it and run with it. Also, say one customer is in the United States. Okay, the United States, customary, the week starts on Sunday. And your other customer is in France, where customary start of the week is Monday. So switch this to Monday for them, and now it's whatever. You can also turn on and off the vertical lines and stuff. So Anyway, any questions so far? Yeah.
It's kind of a tangent, but how modifiable is that control under the hood? I've never tried, but can you change the size or the fonts or anything like that? Or?
So this is completely separated from what they had in the in that pop-up.
Okay.
So really the only part that I took from it is this multi-column list box that lets you select on one cell.
Okay.
That's the only part I took from it. Everything else, all of these are all stuff that I have. Now for this particular one, because it is, my facade is a cluster, it's a little bit different than the other Q controls. So let me show you the code real quick. So I'm passing in a cluster into here. And under the hood, I do some fancy shenanigans to divvy up. Let's see, where is it? Right there. See, I do some fancy shenanigans to divvy up and put my references to all of the buttons and stuff in the right place in my private data. So in my private data for this particular Q control, I have all of the references sitting in here. So because of that, and because of the nature of that, all of those controls have to be in the right tab order in order for this one to work. Yeah, you can still reskin it, but you just have to be a little more careful than maybe just extending a string control or just extending a multi-column list box.
When you do the cluster, then you don't get all those properties. They get to go through the
Yeah.
stuff. Could you do something where you have like one Q control and you pass a Q control reference into another Q control and then like manipulate it
No,
inside there?
I haven't done that. Nothing stops you from doing that, but I wonder what kind of singularity you're going to create. But who knows?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, just like build a Q control out of a couple
Yeah.
of controls. I don't know. If
I haven't tried to nest a Q control, but I don't think there's anything that would inherently break by doing it.
Just don't pass the same Q control into multiple. Don't try to nest one Q control into.
Well, they are.
Well, because each one would.
They are shared reentry. So each instance of that constructor would be its own.
Right. But I'm saying don't ever construct one Q control and then nest
Oh
it.
yeah, and then nest it into itself.
Could you do like
What you could do, and what I have done, is I've passed multiple references into my constructor,
okay.
but whichever one you inherit from,
That gives you all the.
that's the one that gives you all the properties.
So pick the
keep
one
that
with
in
the
mind.
most properties.
What's that?
Pick the one with the most properties or something.
So is that why you went with a cluster instead of like, just like a tab control with the tabs away where you just have a bunch of elements and?
Yeah, I don't know why I decided to do a cluster with this one. I mean, this was one of the first ones I created this way, and so it was just an experiment, but there's probably lots of ways I could have implemented this.
But they're all kind of the same, really.
Well,
Yeah.
I just know, like, from my experience with X controls, like, we had a thing that had, like, 20 graphs on it, and each one had, like, a scaling factor, and this and that, and a whole bunch of controls associated with it.
So if you made one
X
graph that was a Q control, could you nest that into a Q control that had a whole bunch of them?
Yeah, exactly, because I mean,
Yeah.
like, my thing was to consolidate, instead of having 20 graphs and 20 things to select the scaling, you could have 20 Q.
So you would just have the reference coming into the constructors, and then the reference of those
Okay.
going into your other constructors. I think you could do it. I have never tried, so we probably should experiment and try that sometime.
Okay, well, maybe I will.
But anyway, okay. So because I have a specific layout for this one, I included. There is a facade folder that gets built for you. Sometimes I just leave it empty, but in this case, I actually created a facade to use in this specific instance. But yeah,
Will this example be made available online?
yes, I'll make all this available. In fact, most of them are already available, and I have links at the end.
The calendar one's already available.
Yeah, the calendar one's available, but I also repackaged some of these into GPMs, so into G packages, so you'll be able to get them that way. Okay. So going on, extensibility, make the properties dynamic dispatch. So basically, I'm not going to switch this back into presentation mode because I'm going to be switching back and forth a lot here. So this is a way to make properties that are already existing, like I said, the column headers, be overwritable. So I have another Q control here that I want to show you. That is the one that I just showed, the multi-column list box with the sort. So I made an override of the column header string. The reason why is if you look at how this runs, let me actually run it for you. You can click on the column headers and it sorts for you. But you see how I have the triangle there? That triangle is not an ASCII character.
It's not.
So I had to do Unicode in this. So,
Figure out how to get there.
so in my right column headers, I write the column headers to my state data so I can keep track of them clean as just how you entered them. But then I also apply the Unicode character, which is just prefixing stuff with a hex value to make it Unicode. And then you also have to download the Unicode Toolkit from LabVIEW, or from NI, which is that VI, which I made a copy of it because I didn't want to bring in the whole toolkit for this example, so I only have that one VI. But then, when I go do, so that's overriding the actual property, and then right here it's calling parent, so it's calling the real column headers VI that was in the column headers. But now it's doing it with the Unicode prefix attached so that it can display the Unicode character. Then, in the event handler, when they do mouse down, right here, it applies the sort glyph. And so here's the sort glyph. You just can't really see it because it's not displaying Unicode. But it's appending that and then updating the column header in my main VI. So after it applies the sort, which is done here, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Okay, so that's overriding properties. So the next part is, okay, what about extending methods? So one of the Q controls that actually ships with the toolkit is a checkbox tree control. So you have a tree control and it has the checkboxes. Well, what's kind of cool is it actually comes with 3 different ones. Let's see, I'm not necessarily going to have enough time to show you all this, so I might have to rush through this. The 3 different ones, though, are a single select, or just a regular select that as you click, it changes the toggles the checkboxes. There's one that only lets you select one entry, kind of like a radio. So you click through and it only lets you select one entry. And then there's one that does hierarchical, where you actually click on parent and it selects everything under it. Well, the way that that gets away with that is I have a Q control that inherits from tree, and then I have 2 more Q controls that inherit from that one. That top level one is the only one that has an event handler, and it has a VI called toggle selection. These 2 don't have an event handler. They just have overrides of toggle selection. And so when you go hit the button, even though this event handler is running, it knows that it's actually one of these types, and it runs a different event handler. So that actually covers these 2 slides, and I wanted to get through those fast because I wanted to show the next step because it's pretty cool. Okay, the next way to extend is passing a helper class in as a property. So this is kind of a neat idea. Instead of having a property that sets a value or a color or something like that, what about having one that sets what type of sort you want to do on the column? So on this guy, just to give you how this runs, if I just use the default sorting, if I click on this, it's going to sort them into ASCII order, which means it's going to go 1, 10, 100s, and then 2, and then 200, and so on. It's not doing the numeric sort. Well, if I come in and say, create a numeric sort, and tell it, okay, on a numeric sort, This is actually just a VI for my demo. If I tell it to numeric sort, I want to set the active column to 0, and I want to set the type of sorting for that column to be numeric. And I put the numeric object there and I pass it in. So now, when I do the sort, do the first column numeric, now it is sorting the first column numerically. Likewise, if I come back in here and show you the code again, or let's do the first numeric and the second a natural sort. Well, a natural sort is basically, right here it's sorting in ASCII where it's doing A, B, C, D, but it's then sorting the numbers in ASCII order as well. If I say, let's do the second column as a natural sort, now when I click on this, you can see it's got 85, 100, and the numbers are now in order too. Then lastly, if you want to, this one's going to automatically sort in alphabetically because that's the default. Although that's the default if it's all lowercase. I guess I would need to change and go write another alphabetical routine if I wanted it to be case insensitive, which wouldn't be that hard to do. But for the fun of it, I just made just an oddball. Let's say it's sorted by length and alphabetical. And so if I do that, there's the longest word in there, whatever that is, schizo, sac, or whatever. There's the shortest word. And so all I did to do that is change which object I passed in. And then each of these sorting objects just have a VI that overrides sort, and it tells it how to sort. So for the numeric sort, pretty simple, converts the text into a number, does the basic sort, changes the ordering if it's ascending or descending, and then fixes the 2D array.
That's all she does.
You know, for the natural sort, I actually used MGI's natural sort. They released with their toolkit and did the same thing. So, anyway, nope. We'll close the whole thing down. Actually, there's a good reason to close the whole thing down because of the next one. So, okay, the last part I want to show is maybe the most complicated, but you know, it is really cool. So, what this does is I wanted to create some better edit time behavior. So I used the right-click functionality where you could program your own right-clicks, and I added some functionality. Actually, I shouldn't have shut that down quite yet because I want to show you before I show you the configuration. Let me open that back up. But what I can do then is the developer at edit time can come in here. The developer that's using this can come into, let's see, I opened the wrong one, data grid. They can say, okay, this one's already a data grid. I'll right click on it. I'll say, I want to open the data grid config. It opens up. Here's all my columns. If I want to change, if I want to add another one, I can just say add another one. Let's see, let's move it down to the bottom and double click and change the data type. These are the data types that I currently have programmed in, but these are all class implementations. You can program your own data type however you want this to work. I'm just going to leave that. I'm going to delete the one I created and show you how these work again. So I have it running. So here's a Boolean, maybe. There we go, true to false. It's got a button there. Here's a list box. I have a couple of options in the list box. So I can switch those. Here's a numeric. You know, I have 3.14 in there. Let's see, it's a, I don't know, like Alldredge's number, 6 something. I can have a date where I select the date. I might be able to actually have that be my own calendar view control. Paths, so double click on path and select something. Let's see, select our presentation here. Do view controls, maybe that needs a few more exclamations. There we go. So anyway, I can set this up in any way that I want, and then at runtime, it is then locked into that. So here's the cool part. This is how this works under the hood, which I didn't get to show you last year. All right. So there's two projects. There's a configuration project that sets up all of the right-click stuff and all of the classes and the data types. So here's all my data type classes, and they have some specific overridable VIs, like what do you want the configuration screen to look like in the editor. I have to have a name of it, but it's just a simple passing string out. But that's just so that it can show up in the list. I have what does the pop-up look like? So for the button, it's just a pop-up VI with just a button sitting there. And for this one, I also, as part of the configuration, I have, what do you want it to display in the multi-column list box. Under the hood, all of that configuration gets saved. So this is the code for the dialog box. I mean, it has a sub-panel here that launches those configuration screens that you have with each of your data classes, depending on what you select over here. And then how that saves is pretty cool. So how that saves with your VI is this set config. So we have an array, we have a data grid config class that is this guy that has all of your columns in it and all of the data types all of the columns are. And then that saves, flattens to a variant and saves as a tag into the VI. And so this is editable at edit time, but then once it's saved into your VI, it's compiled into your VI, and now that VI has that config in it.
So it's actually saved to the control. So if you copied that control to another one, then it will
Oh, yes, this is, sorry, not saved to the VI, it's saved to the control.
Yeah, so that's even better, because then you just copy it to another
So
VI.
you can copy that same control to another VI with that same configuration. It would already be set up with that same configuration.
Cool.
Yeah, you're right, it is saved to the control. And then likewise, the way that it gets the config back out is, just the reverse of that. Tag name gets it out.
How to do the date one?
What's that?
How to do the date one?
The date one, like the data type?
Yeah, didn't see a date.
Okay, yeah. The date one is actually a numeric that you tell it to display as a date.
Really?
Yeah. And so let me go back to the other project now. Oh, wait. There's one thing I missed to show you on this project. The right-click stuff. Let me show you that. Okay, so the right-click menu stuff is, you have to go in and create a right-click menu just like you do with any of the right-click menu stuff, and it creates this LLB for you with, I think, 3 different things. Yeah. The control type that you want to operate on, so I want to operate on a multi-column list box. The VI, this is this is what displays in the actual right-click menu and how it controls that part. One thing that it does is it goes and does a get on the multi-column list box to see if there's a saved data grid configuration in there. And if there's not, it displays something different. It displays open if there is a saved data grid config in there. If there's not, it says, do you want to convert this multi-column list box to a data grid? And then it will put one in there. And then the execute actually does the read and the pop-up. So this is where it's actually displaying the dialog box that lets you edit the configuration. So, okay, let me go show it to you one last time. I have a couple more slides.
Why do you get that?
I did that on purpose. In my next presentation, if I don't open this up as run as admin, then something doesn't work. And it's just for demo purposes. So that I wouldn't forget, I told Windows to always open my LabVIEW with admin privileges, so I have to keep telling it that I'm okay with it opening with admin privileges, but that's why I did that. Okay, so to show the tester one last time, let's actually go into the configuration screen. I think LabVIEW just died. That's even a cooler crash. When you don't, when it does a silent for a crash.
Where's the insane?
Yeah, it's interesting. It actually asks me every time I try to open something too, but I don't know why that part is. That's just Windows. No weird security. Okay, let me try to show you this one more time so I can answer your question about the date. So let me right click again, open config. So let's see, it's this one with the date. Basically, you just have to come in here and display format. I had to display it as absolute times. So this is how the date one works. It's just a numeric, but you come in here and say display as absolute time, and then it displays right. You notice I stole all this code too for all of the properties. This looks exactly like the numeric properties. So that's all there.
Is this data configurator thing available on the VI package manager yet?
It's not on VI package manager because I didn't put it through the tools network firewall. But
On your website or something?
yeah, I'll show you.
Oh, cool.
So summary, almost done. Reuse saves time, saves money. Encapsulation makes it easier to reuse. Extensibility, if you plan for extensibility ahead of time, it makes the reuse easier because then you can apply it to more things or at least extend it for the unknown because you don't know how you're going to need to extend it in the future. Best ways to do queue controls. Like I said, queue controls are the best. There might be some bias. But here's the ways to extend queue controls. If you can plan for encapsulation, plan for extensibility, then it makes it more reusable. You have a greater return on investment. So here is the links that you were wanting. So I guess I don't have the data grid on GPM yet because of the right-click menu stuff. That needs to be installed globally, not at the per project level like GPM does, but maybe eventually. So if you want, attend Derek's presentation tomorrow because he's going to talk about that sort of thing. As far as the others though, the calendar and the multi-column list box are both on GPM. The tree selection control, which I didn't really get to show you, but there is some, not only does it ship with the queue control toolkit, but there's examples. So you just go to the example finder, search for queue controls. There's examples in the example finder for those. And then here's some general links for queue controls. So to get the tool, to find the enthusiast page, all of that. These slides will also be available. So, and then some general links for the G community. As you know, you've seen me around, I'm wearing lots of hats. I'm one of the directors of G Central. I'm also one of the admins of the LabVIEW Wiki, and so I'm involved in lots of things. So, any other questions related to queue controls and related to encapsulation of UI code? Feel free to contact me later if you think of a question. Yes?
Have you had any problems with the asynchronous staging or whatever not closing?
No, because I have an orphan handler built in.
Oh.
And so it does have a destructor, and it's best to use the destructor to close all your references and stuff for you. Let's say you forget or your program crashes or something. It has an orphan handler that says, oh, the VI that called me is no longer live. Kill the event handler. So, and most of the time it's been reliable. I haven't had any times that I can think of that it hasn't shut down or it's hung, or unless I had some other weird error that I need to go debug. But it's not because of the toolkit itself. It's because of my queue control that I was working on.
Have you tried to make any queue controls of things that might need to be a little more performance, just to see how they?
I have some
Okay.
in my next presentation that you might want to see. So here's a plug for my next presentation. My next presentation is about programming for touchscreens. And I have some swipe controls that are key controls. So yeah, they're pretty performant because you have to swipe and then they animate and you slow down. All of that cool stuff. So
the overhead is bad, honestly.
Is it?
Yeah, so play with it a bit. I mean, if you really got crazy with the amount of
Advanced
override and stuff, yeah, you might be, yeah. But if you keep it lean, don't get too crazy, yeah, it's not bad. Okay. It's a little bit overhead with some class.
And I have some others out there on the Q Control Enthusiast page. There's some cool stuff. I have one that's a picture control, that's a pie chart that you can actually click on the pie and the pie extends out and everything. I've done lots of fun stuff with them, so. Hey, any other questions? That's all I have for you then.
I had a question. Why are you using some of the stuff that JPL is supposed to be, I think?
So I could create them as VI packages, but I'd have to host them somewhere else. If I want them hosted in the Tools Network, then I have to go through their crazy 3 months of back and forth firewall, which is one of the reasons that G Central exists.
Yeah. So
And
is that somewhere, that's not somewhere you post stuff, though.
G Central hopefully will be a repository, but it will be package agnostic.
Good.
And so, right now, I kind of like the way that G Package Manager lets you install stuff at the per project level. And I'm actually thinking about making that, the whole toolkit be able to be installed that way. And I can talk to you afterwards why I think that's a good idea. But,
I don't think it's
you know, yeah, and neither does Steven. So, you know, there's some question about that. But, you know, we can talk about that, so.
Oh, one other question. Does this play well with PPLs? Can you put it in a PPL?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, I have.
Yeah.
You know, the project, they're in PPL. That was one of the main reasons that brought them about, is to play well with PPLs.
I thought it was all.
Yeah. Any other questions? Do you have a question? Okay.
I guess.
That's all I have for you then. Thank you.